which is where we're at on here. So homework 16 wants you to find the slope of the line. When I think of slope, I kind of think about having a hill. If I have my hill, if I'm going uphill as I go from left to right, my slope is positive. If I'm going downhill as I go from left to right, my slope is negative. We have two other kind of weird slopes. One of them is when we have our horizontal line. The horizontal line should be like the ground. It should be flat. And so the slope of that is going to be 0. You also have a line that's vertical, straight up and down. If your line is vertical, the slope is going to be undefined. And we'll talk about why in a minute. But just kind of make that note that you've got those special cases or whatever where you either have a horizontal line. If it's horizontal, the slope is always 0. Or if you have a vertical line, your slope is going to be undefined. I'm going to move this up here. So what slope is it's the change in the y value over the change in the x value. Well, your y-axis goes up and down, and your x-axis goes, I'm going to write that x, right or left. So they're going to give you a formula to find slope. The formula to find slope looks like this. M is the symbol for slope. I don't know who made that up, and it doesn't make any sense why it's an M. But M is the symbol for slope, just like we had y equals mx plus b. And then they're going to say that you take the y value from point 2 minus the y value from point 1 to find the change in the y direction, over the x value from point 2 minus the x value from point 1. So if I'm going to use the formula to find my slope, I would need to know where these 2 points are. Usually you read from left to right. I'm going to call the point on the left my first point. So my first point's ordered pair would be -2, +2. My second point is at 4, -1. So this would be my x value from point 1, my y value from point 1, my x value from point 2, my y value from point 2. If I plug them into my formula, the y value from point 2 is -1. I'm going to subtract the y value from point 1, which is +2. On the bottom, I'm going to take the x value from point 2, which is 4. I'm going to subtract the x value from point 1. So I'm going to subtract a -2. So I'm going to have subtracting -2. So if I'm doing my slope here, -1 minus 2 would be -3. 4 minus a -2, when I subtract a negative, I end up adding 4 plus 2 is 6. Now before I simplify that fraction, if I look at my graph to see what this actually meant, if I started here, the change in my y direction, I had to go down 1, 2, 3. That's the -3 on top. The change in my x direction, after I went down 1, 2, 3, I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right. So I really, if I have the graph, can count and find my slope. I went down 3 and over 6, but they want you to practice using the formula so that when you don't have a graph or you have really big numbers, you've practiced up using the formula. Now, of course, we know that if I have -3, 6, I'm going to simplify it, because it's a fraction, to -1/2 for my final answer. So number 2 here, if I'm going to find the slope, the change in y over the change in x. So again, I'm going to look up the points here on the graph. This first point is at -3, +1. point on the right is at positive 2, positive 4. So 2, 4. So this would be my x1 and my y1. This would be my x2 and my y2. So my y value from point 2 would be what number? The y value from point 2 is going to be 4. So 4 minus 1 on top. And then on the bottom, 2 minus a negative 3. Exactly. So 4 minus 1 gives me 3. 2 minus a negative 3, 5. Because I have to change that to a plus. So then I check it and I say, okay, if I'm going from this point to this point, I went 1, 2, 3 up, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over. 3/5. Can't simplify that. That's exactly what I did. Now, if you switch those 2 points around, you're still going to end up with the same answer. You just end up with a negative over a negative, because if I would have started with this point over here, I would have went down 3 and back 5, and a negative over a negative still gives me a positive slope. I like to always go from left to right, but if you want to switch them around, you can. It works. You get the same answer. So number 3, if we want to find the slope of our line, the first point on the left here, what are my coordinates?
-4 and 3.
-4, 3. And the second one is at?
1, -4.
1, -4. So my slope, I'm going to do the change in y over the change in x. So y2 minus y1, I would do?
1 minus -4.
1 minus a -4. So subtract, whoops.
Oh wait, no, that's on the bottom.
That's on the bottom. You better pay attention here. That should be on the bottom. That's my x's. I got to do my y's. So I should have,
-4 minus -3.
whoops, -4 minus
Positive 3.
a 3. So subtracting my y values, I have a -4 minus the 3. And then for my x's, I'm going to have the 1 minus a -4. So the y minus the y, the x minus the x. So -4 minus 3 is -7. 1 minus a -4 is +5. So then I go back to my graph and I check. If I start here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. We know that when they put it in on the computer, they'll put the negative out in front because they like it that way on the fractions. So -7/5 is your slope. Your line is going downhill from left to right. So they give you some with the graph so that you can practice using the formula, so that when you get to the next ones where you don't have the graph, you kind of have the idea how the formula works.